Hello everybody, this is Don Young with So Young Designs, and I just want to welcome you back to another tutorial video. We are going to be working on the one for my next class. I've already made this table runner. I had to get it done and get it into the shop so they can have it for a sample. So I'm going to do one of the panels with you guys. I didn't get a chance to videotape while I was making it. I was just too busy, so I'm going to do one of the panels for you right now and show you how I did it. This is an Easter table runner where you're going to use coloring book pages, and we did all of this inside the Destiny machine. You can do it with a Solaris, you can do it with a Luminaire. It's basically taking one of the built-in embroidery designs and then adding two coloring books to it. So I got some fabric hooped up. Just grabbed a piece of just a solid fabric. That's what I use on the other ones. I use different solid colors. I'll post pictures of what it looks like. You can see on the back, my stabilizer, just a no-show mesh on the back, but I save all the short pieces whenever I'm doing the Need a Good Design stuff. I get a lot of pieces left over, so I save all of my short pieces. And the reason I save them all is because I can sew them together like that. And when I sew them together, I can use them for demos and for test stitch outs and stuff like that, so I don't waste my good stabilizer. It's just a way of just, it only takes me, 10-15 minutes to sew them all together. I just put them all in a big box, and when I fill the box, I sew them enough to get almost a full roll. So it works out really good for my demo stuff. So enough of that. Let's go ahead and get going on this. I'm going to use my mouse so I can keep my hands out of the way of the camera here. So we are going to go into IQ Designer, and we are going to create a line image. I've done a couple of these before, so this should be nothing new, but for some people who haven't tried this or haven't had a chance to try it, or you want a refresher, this will help. So we're going to go ahead and use the USB, because I found this on Google. I downloaded the image, it's just a JPEG, and then put it on my USB jump drive. And it is stored in my classes, and it's under the Easter egg. And you can see there's one here for just a plain old Easter egg. I was using that just to make appliques, but this is one of them. That's one of the ones I haven't done yet. So this is the other one I did. So this is the one we're going to do tonight real quick. I'm going to try and get through this kind of quick, so it's not a long video. Of course, you can pause it and do the steps and then come back to it. So everything's selected. We're ready to go. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to scan it. See, with the black and white image, it does really well. So it has no problems, no issues. Hit set. I got a red box around it. I can resize it if I want to, but if you go to the size button, you will see it's 6.3 by 4.6, or actually 4.7. So I'm actually pretty good on my size, because these blocks are going to be about an 8 by 8 or 7.5 by 7.5, somewhere right around there. So I'm not too worried about it. Size is good, so I'm okay with that. Hit OK. So we're going to do a combination of two things. We're going to set all the lines to, some are going to be stitches, all runs, some are going to be no stitches. We're going to fill these areas in different types of fills. We're going to use regular solid fills, and we're going to use a little bit of stippling. So let's start at the top of the egg, and we'll work our way around. So there's the whole egg. So what I'm going to do is go into line properties. I'm going to go onto here, and I'm going to choose a run stitch, a double run. I'm going to choose a color. I'm going to hit OK. You can see the pencil is highlighted, so I can draw. But I don't want to do that. I want to fill all these lines, and I don't want to draw them. So if I select the bucket, if I touch the line, everything turned red except for these ones in here and these ones here. Anything that was touching that line that I touched will turn that stitch. If it's not touching, like these, they won't turn. I'll have to go in there and do them individually. So I can go ahead and go in here, and since I got it selected, I know I'm going to want that stitched. I know I'm going to want that stitched. I'm going to want that stitched. I'm going to want that done. That, and that, and that. Now on these bubbles that are in here, in the first one I did, I filled these little ones, and then I outlined them, and they were just too tiny. It didn't really look good, and it really wasn't worth doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch the big ones. So I'm just going to click on them and do that. You can see that little one right there is red. That little one right there is red. I don't want those red. This one in here, I'm not going to stitch these ones. I am going to stitch these ones. So I got to go in there and click those. But I can also see, if you hit the eraser key, hit the one size you want, and zoom in, I'm navigating with this screen, and then because if I do anything in here, it's going to make it a stitch or something. So I've got my eraser selected, so now if you can see it's got a little red square. I always click on the blank area and drag to the area I want to erase. And so I'm just erasing that one. I don't want that one to stitch. And then I'm going down and I'm going to erase this one as well. And then I'm going to go to here. And when I fill this part, it's going to spill over that gate and come into here. If I fill this one, it's going to spill over and come into here. So since I've got a stitch already selected, I'm just going to take my pencil tool. I'm just going to touch right to there. I'm just going to touch right to there. And all I did is I just closed those gates. Now I'm going to fill these ones, but I'm not going to stitch these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into here, and I am going to go to no stitch, which won't let me choose a color. You can see it's grayed out. Set my bucket tool, and I'm just going to touch these different ones here. Okay. So to save on time and the length of this video, I am going to pause it for a minute. I'm going to get all these ones no stitch, and then I'll show you what I did, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and I've got all these set to the no stitch. Now here's another thing that you can do if you want. You can take your eraser tool, you can set it to a pretty good size, and you can actually, instead of doing no stitch, you can actually erase these. And what I'm doing by erasing them is, like I said, when I do a lot of this stuff, I learn so much just by trial and error and trying different things. But I noticed when I did my stippling on my other one, it kept going around these, and it kind of made my stippling look different different than what I wanted. So I'm going to try something. If we erase these, maybe the stippling won't think of those as objects to go around, and it'll actually stitch in these areas. So that's what I'm hoping. So since I'm not going to stitch them, I might as well just erase them. Now these other ones that I'm not stitching, I don't want to erase because I want to fill them. So let's start doing some filling. This is the fun part. So we're going to take our paint bucket, we're going to take our regular fill stitches, and we're going to start with a, let's start with a good purple here. We'll hit that, and we'll take our paint bucket, and we'll just start touching. When I stitched these out on the first egg I actually did them with a variegated thread, and they turned out really nice. So that's an option. If you have variegated threads, you can always stitch them with that to give you different color options. So that looks really good, and then I'm going to go to a yellow center, and then I'm just going to turn around. I still got my fill bucket highlighted. I'm just going to touch and fill it. Now the area on the outside, this area in here, I'm not going to fill. I'm not going to do anything because it's going to be covered by the applique. Okay, so now we're going to go in here and we'll go ahead and fill these butterflies. So let's do them in a different, still a lighter purple, I guess. Try that. And we still got the bucket. So we get those two wings done. Come over here, we'll get that wing and that wing. And then we're going to fill the inside, and we'll do that with still with this color right here. Same thing, still got to select this, so I can click that one and click that one and click that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. There, it looks pretty good. So now we're going to fill these other ones, and I'm just going to use a darker pink on that. And like I say, the colors I'm using, you don't have to use. You can. I'm just telling the machine these are different colors. So when I start stitching, I'll lay out my colors and see what I want to stitch and what colors I want to use. And these might be totally different colors. You know, it's just right for right now. This is what it is. So now we need to get the body. So we'll just use let's use a brown here. We'll fill him in that one. So let's take a little step back. We'll look at it. Our butterflies are done. These are all done. It all looks good. So let's fill in all these stripes up here. So I'm going to go back to the fill, and let's start with a red, and we'll hit okay. And we're still on fill, so I'll fill that one in a red, and maybe that one in a red. And we'll go to a gold color, and we'll do that one. And maybe we'll go to a blue, that one, What's a good color I haven't used yet? Let's try a dark blue. And there we go. So I got that all done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this area in a stippling, and I'm going to fill this area in a stippling. So we still on our fill. We're just going to go select a different stippling. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm just going to touch inside there. So that's all filled in there. And it looks like, yep, it did. It stitched right over, or it's showing that it's going to stitch right over those. Versus here, and the butterfly, you can see that it's not going to stitch over it. So we'll find out when it actually does it and see what it does. So I'm going to change to a different stippling. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to hit one of these other ones. I know the Solaris and the Luminaire have a lot more different stippling designs. If you have Kit 2 on your Destiny, you're going to have a few more as well. So we'll hit that and we'll use just the same color and we'll just do that one there. Actually, I think I'll change the color just so it forces me to do a color change to make sure it doesn't stitch it while I'm not paying attention. So there we go, pretty much got it all. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and I'm going to save it to my pocket. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to save it to my USB also. So now we're going to go to next, and as you can see, this little egg here right now, that little part up there is the marching ants. That's what I'm setting all these settings to. But if I hit the link button, all my fills are now going to be edited at one time. So I can go here and turn undersewing on, pole compensation I don't mess with. Density I always take up to 110. Angle I'm going to leave on auto. You can go back through and unlink it and do each one of these individually and set these parameters and change the angles if you want, but it's very time consuming and I'm not going to do that right now. So we're going to go to the next stitch, which is going to go this way. So now it's telling me that it's the run stitch. I'm going to hit link and it gives me all of my run stitches. So all of my run stitches are together. So I'm good to go. I leave that. I never change it really. I leave it right where it's at. Now I'm going to hit preview. And that's what it's going to look like. So it looks really good. So we're happy with it. We're going to go ahead and hit set. And we're going to hit OK. And now we're in embroidery. But before we do anything, this is going to be done on this hoop, which is a 9x9 hoop. So I am going to set this to stitch and do stippling and do my applique. So first step first is let's do the applique. If I select this shield button, it's going to create an applique. And if you look at that, it's created the placement stitch, it's created the tack down stitch, and it's created the satin stitch. And let me check on one thing real quick and I'll be right back. Here's what I want to check on real quick. This satin stitch, I wanted to see how wide is it going to be. Is it a 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter? What's the width? So if you go to the settings and you go to page 8, it gives you embroidery applique distance. So I'm assuming that that's the distance of the applique, and it was originally set at 0. It looks like 120 is what it's set for default. So let's, I might take that down to there. Let's see what it does. I don't really see a noticeable difference, but we'll see what it does. So anyway, so that's the applique. So it's all set and ready to go. So now it's gonna do a placement stitch. I'm gonna place the fabric. It's gonna do a tack down stitch, and then I'm gonna do all my other stitching. And once all my other stitching is done, then I am going to do the final satin stitch. So one last thing I want to do is I want to do the stippling. So if you want to stipple around a design that you have currently set in embroidery, I don't have to go back to IQ and do it. If I select this button right here, what it does is you can see it drew a black line and my distance is 0. I can send that to IQ. So that shape is now in IQ. So if I want that shape later for something, I can use that. I can use it to do applique. I can do all kinds of stuff with it. But we have this button right here. It's a flower with stippling around it. If I click that, it's automatically going to put stippling around my design. I can set my hoop size. So if I have my largest hoop set and I do an 8x8, it's only going to do stippling in an 8x8, even though there's more room in the hoop. So this hoop, I think, is a 9x9. I can't remember the exact size of it. but that's going to fit in it just fine. So this is my spacing. I'm going to take that up. I usually always set it to about 252, somewhere around there. And there we go. There's our stippling. Okay, so we got this ready to go, but what I wanted to show you, if you look at this stippling, it looks really good. But if you look at this stippling, I don't like it. I don't like it at all, and I don't really like how this one turned out either. So I did this to show you what you can do. You always want to save your design in IQ before you go into the step where you set all your stitches, and it will save it in your pocket. So I saved this in here, so I can click on here, I can click there. So this is saved. I can get out of here. I can go back to IQ. I can load. I go to my pocket, and there it is. And I hit set. So there it is. It's all ready because I saved it before I went to the next step. So if I go to the next step, you see none of this is set. So I've got to do all this again. I've got to link it. That's linking all of my fill stitches. And I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to set the density to 110 and do set. Okay. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to do all of my run stitches and I'm going to set those. But what I forgot to do is to go back one more somewhere in here. I got to get to all the fills. Where is stippling? There it is. There's the first stippling right there. So I'm going to turn off the outline. I don't want that. I'm going to leave the angle where it's at, but I'm going to take this one down. It's about 55%. And we'll set that. And then we're going to hit the back key. I should get back to this other stippling here real quick. There it is, right there. So there's the other stippling. So I'm going to set this down pretty small. And then I'm going to set this to 0. And I'll leave the run where it's at. So let's check that and see how it looks. We'll go to preview and we'll hit OK. So it looks a little better, but let's take it a little smaller. This looks a little bit better. So let's go to return. I should be able to go right back to that. And let's take it down a little even smaller. How small will it go? Let's try that. See how that looks. That's what happens when you're trying to stipple a small area. That looks a little better. It's not really getting up into here. It is definitely covering those other ones, those stitches I took out. So I think I'm going to be okay with that. We'll just leave that. We should be fine. And we'll go with that. So I'm going to hit set. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm back in embroidery again. So I got to do these edits again real quick. So we're just going to hit that. That's set. We're going to hit that. And we're going to go to... So tonight you get to see all my mistakes. But that's how we learn. You know, I learn a lot by my mistakes. Trust me. So that's all set. So now we'll go to preview. That looks perfect. I really like that. We're going to go to OK. We're going to go to embroidery. And it's going to want to do that first. But of course, we want to do the applique. For some reason, this thing doesn't want to do the applique first. It does it almost last. So there is your satin. There is your tack down. And there with the scissors icon is your placement. And you can see there's your run. So we're going to stitch out this one first. Then we're going to stitch out that one. And we're going to cut our fabric. And then we're going to hit 0. And we'll start here. We just got to make sure we stop it. And we cut the fabric and, you know, trim it. And then we'll do our satin. And then we'll do our stippling on it. So one other thing I want to notice, I want to show you guys on this, and I'll swing this over real quick, is that this is just fabric and the stabilizer. And what I forgot to do, and I did it on the other ones, is I'm going to go out in the back and I'm going to rehoop this. What I did on these is I put down a fusible fleece. I fused fusible fleece to the back of this fabric, and then I put it on top of the poly no-show mesh, and then I hooped it and stitched it. The reason is it gave it a little bit of a loft, gave it a little bit of density, and it helped to stabilize the fabric as well. And then it stitched everything out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get this hooped up, get this all ready, and then we are going to stitch it out. And when it's all done, I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you some pictures of what the quilt looked like at the end. And it should be a lot of fun. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. You can see I got the mesh on the poly no-show mesh, and then I've also got the fusible fleece on the back there. So we're all ready to go. It just gives it a little bit more loft, so it'll stitch out a little bit better. So we're gonna get going here. I just got a simple gray thread there for right now because we're gonna do the applique first. So we'll let this run its course and see what it does. Okay, you can see the outline of our egg here for the applique. I'll cut out the piece of fabric and put it down over the top of that, and then we'll hit the next step, which will be the tack down stitch. Okay, the one thing about when the Destiny does these automatic appliques, and it's not done in software, is the placement is a single run, the tack down is a single run, and then you got the satin. But I always like to have the tack down to be a double run. So usually in the Knit Good, a lot of the ones, I'll stitch in one direction, then I'll turn around and go back and stitch in the other direction. So all I'm going to do is just back up for 1 second and let it do the same run again and just stitch over itself. That'll give me a double stitch on it before I cut out the fabric. You can see it did a pretty good job on the applique. We got the double stitch down on it. Went ahead and cut it. And now I'm going to go ahead and start doing all the regular stitching on top of it. I'll stop and show part of it, but I'm not going to videotape all the stitching. But pretty much when it's all done, I'll show you guys right before we do the stippling. Talk to you then. Okay, everybody, it's all done. You can see how we finished it all up. And let me get it out of the hoop for you here, so you can take a look at it. I'm sorry, I'm kind of shaky here doing this on my phone. Now, I learned something while this thing was stitching out, and I'll show you what I figured out. Remember we were talking about the offset on the applique. If you look right here, you see the black line? That's where my egg outline is. You can see how far away the applique is. So when I went to the settings screen and set that distance, it wasn't the width of the satin stitch, it was the width of the offset. So I learned something about that. So that's why that satin is all the way kind of far away from the edge. So I'm going to show you here on the screen. If you go into the into that, I think it was on page right there, embroidery applique distance. Right now it's at 0.08, but it should be down to 0. If I had it down at 0, it would have put this stitch right along that stitch. And there wouldn't have been any offset. It would have been right on it. But because I had it set at that distance, it pulled it quite a ways away from the actual shape, made the actual outline bigger. I mean, not bad. It still looks good. It's not bad at all. There we go. That's better. Excuse the background. It's just a quilt that I'm working on. So here's the first egg that I did. Did it in bright colors. I wanted to be really bright as possible. And if you look in there, you can see all the different stitches. But you can see on that one, on the applique, I was really close to the edge. So I didn't have that offset. It's actually sitting right there close on the edge. Okay. This little guy is in the Destiny 1 and 2. He's a built-in embroidery. And the font is built into the machine. The jelly beans, those are ones I bought off Etsy for like $1.50 or something like that. It wasn't bad at all. I just put them on the border. And then that's the egg that we just did. You can see I did it in the variegated thread and everything else. I did that one on a yellow. Let me back up here a little bit so I can kind of show you the whole runner. And that's pretty much it. It was really a simple runner to do, all done in IQ. You can do something like that very easily with any kind of coloring book page. I'll be doing some more of them to show you some different ways of doing different things. I like to do like a big medallion or something. But this is going to post this on Facebook. It'll be on YouTube on So Young Designs Facebook page. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, and that way you can stay in touch, and I can send you any different ones I do and the different lessons that I do. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.